all you magic makers out there. Welcome to Touch of Magic, where we explore everything magical, mystical, mysterious, and metaphysical. I'm Marissa DiAradia, and today we have our first segment of Living the Craft, where we meet and chat with modern witches to discuss their path to magic and get some helpful advice and tips on living a magical life from real witches. Today we're here with Amanda, aka Hallowe, a practicing witch here in fabulous Las Vegas. Welcome, Amanda. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Amanda is one of the mods over at iWitches. She's a friend of mine, and she's part of my circle, and she's fabulous. And we're going to have a cool discussion and talk about some of the things that people mention in our group that would be kind of maybe interesting to people. So
Yes.
we'll check it out. But first, let's get to know Amanda a little better. Let's do that. So I got a couple of questions for you, Amanda. What drew you to witchcraft? What was it about witchcraft that brought you to this path?
So for me, honestly, it just made sense. It's going to sound a little corny, but when I was a little girl, I was into witches and magic, and I was constantly, in my backyard looking for, the fae, and it's just always been a part of my life. I just didn't have a name for it until I hit, I think it was it was my freshman year of high school. So I was about 14 when I first started practicing. And that's because somebody else was like, hey, there's a name for this. There's a word for it. And it was really nice to actually be able to put, a word to what I felt. But it was something that it drew me because, like I said, it almost called to me. It was almost like a calling for me. I felt it for the longest time. And like I said, when I started reading it, it just made sense. I think part of it was definitely the freedom. There was a lot of stuff. I grew up Christian, and I went to a Presbyterian church when I was little, and I had so many questions that couldn't be answered through that particular path. So I'm really happy that I was able to find something else.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are drawn. They just feel like there's something missing from the path that they're on. And, the beautiful thing about witchcraft is it's very empowering. And I think
Yes.
people are looking for things that make them feel empowered, like they're not a victim of circumstance.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And that was definitely part of it for me. I'm sure we'll probably get into this a little bit later too, but one of the deities that I work with is the Morrigan. And one of the things that she is, most people know her, as goddess of war, goddess of death, goddess of battle, but she's also a goddess of sovereignty and a goddess of transformation. And I've taken, the lessons that she's had to teach me to heart with that, where nobody else can control my life but me. I can control my circumstances or change my circumstances if I need to, and, learn to adapt to whatever life has to throw out at me. And it has been a really empowering experience. Not only being a witch, but walking with the Morrigan has been really, like I said, just really empowering for me. And it was definitely something I was missing from my life for a long time.
So a lot of times when people work with specific deities, there's a calling or a moment that they feel this connection. Did that happen for you?
Yeah. So it's funny because I've always been drawn to darker goddesses. So even when I was younger, probably about sixth grade is when I can kind of trace it back to. I was obsessed with Egyptian mythology, and my favorite goddesses were Bastet and Sekhmet. Who is again a goddess of war and all that fun stuff. And then when I really started practicing witchcraft, I went and bounced around from Hecate to Nyx to Persephone to, a lot of those goddesses that, may embody lighter parts of life too, but really have us looking at the darker parts of ourselves. And so when I started as a Celtic pagan, it just made sense to, I've worked with Breed as well, the hearth goddess, but the Morrigan, it was a call. It was a literal call where I was like, this just makes sense.
Okay. All right. So what is your current tradition? You touched on Celtic right now. Celtic pagan, Celtic.
Yes.
What do you call yours? I know names are so big right now. Everybody wants to make sure they are cataloged properly.
Yes. They
So
are. And that's something, I mean, I tell, I tell people who are new, I'm like, you don't need to label yourself right away. It's not something that you need to do at all, really. But if you want to, figure out what you want to do first and what's calling to you first, and then put an name to it, which is what I did. I bounced around, like I said, to Hellenistic paganism for a while, to I was a Wiccan for a while. So I'm not a Wiccan now. I consider myself a Celtic Pagan. So I do follow the Celtic pantheon, not strictly, but mostly. And then I am in what most would call an eclectic gray witch. So I'm not really I don't just practice beneficial magic, I practice almost strictly beneficial magic, but I also study the darker magics and baneful magics. So I kind of know, if anything, just so I know, I'm one of those people that's like,
of
you
course.
don't know how to heal if you don't know how to hurt, or at least what caused that hurt. It's the same thing with doctors. Doctors know what's hurting you or what has hurt you, so they know how to fix it.
There's a lot of stigma around negative magics, and
Mhm.
and whether you want to do it or not. I'm one of those people. Do what you got to do.
Right.
Do what you
Right.
got. I'm not judging anybody for what they're doing. I know what my practice is. I know my relationship with my spiritual path, uh,
Mhm.
and I don't. I'm not going to tell anybody else what to do. They
Right.
got to figure out what's right for them.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
a lot of fighting on Facebook over that topic, but
So much. And it cracks me up too a little bit, because I'm like, guys, just, there's so many people that are like, well, you can't do this if you can't be a witch if you're Christian, or you can't be a witch if you believe this, or you can't be a witch unless you're born into it, or you can't be a witch unless you're initiated into a coven and you have to, or a tradition, and you have to study for this amount of time before you can call yourself a witch. There's so much gatekeeping, I think. And I mean, I understand it kind of to a point, because it was something that people, they feel empowered and they feel special and they feel strengthened by this path. But I think that a lot of people let their egos get in the way with that, and instead of sharing it with other people and sharing their knowledge, hoard it. And I mean, that's happened for so
I
long.
mean, but the problem is this. So
Mhm.
what you're saying is wrong, but
Mhm.
I've got to just say something. There are certain paths of witchcraft
Mhm.
that do not require an initiation, that do
Yes.
not require, training of any kind or whatever it is. Okay. Those are open paths. You want to call yourself a witch, but there are specific traditions of witchcraft that part of their spiritual uh, or religious, because they call it religious,
Yes.
it's a religion to them, and they have every right to call it that.
Oh yeah.
Those are oath bound things that you cannot, you can't just take that.
Right.
You can't just take that and use that. And I think that's an important thing. And that's not gatekeeping particularly to me, because you don't have to be, let's say, a Gardnerian. You don't have to be, part of one of those traditions if you don't want to be, and you can still practice witchcraft and
Yes.
follow your own path. You don't have to be part of those, but those people have every right to follow their spiritual path
Oh
in a
yeah.
traditional way. And I think people don't understand that there's a difference between gatekeeping, like trying, if somebody wants to go join a Gardnerian coven who has a teaching coven that wants to teach them how to be part of their path and possibly initiate into their tradition. you
Mhm.
know they're going to follow all the steps to do that because that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. Yes. And that's a very important distinction. I agree with that 100%. I do think there's a lot of, maybe not a lot, but there are certain traditions where it is, something extremely important, and it is a very spiritual and very religious experience for them. And they have every right to protect that experience. And they have
Right.
every right to say, no, you have to do certain things in order to,
Use the
in
word
order,
witch. I think
exactly.
that's different. I mean,
Yeah.
but is that the same type of witch? No, there's different
No.
types of witches.
Yep.
You can just be a practitioner of folk magic, or some other type of
Mhm.
magical practice. And if you want to call yourself a witch, I don't think that there's a problem with that. And I think as
Right.
we come through time, that definition of witchcraft has changed quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
And there's so much information. A lot of
Yes.
misinformation too, just by the way.
Yes.
But there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff out there. So,
Yes.
yeah. So the gatekeeping thing, we see a lot of fighting about that on the group. The group that I run is iWitches. Amanda is one of the moderators. There's like 352,000 people. Don't
Yeah.
ask me how there's that many people,
It
because
keeps
that's like
going up
a
too.
small city. There's a lot of people in this group. And so when you've got a lot of people from a lot of different places, there's people from varying degrees of experience, from varying traditions, and everybody's right and everybody's fighting. And I would like to see people be like, okay, well, I don't agree with that, but you're allowed to. This is America,
Right.
right? Like, I mean, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of belief. So
Yes.
if people want to believe something different, you don't like it, scroll on by. You don't
Right.
you don't have to. You don't have to believe
That
it.
all the time. All the time. I think one of my, I don't want to say it was like a favorite. It's not a favorite. It was pretty, we had an instance where somebody had posted and said something about how Christian witches were hypocrisy, and that they were, like, how did they reconcile this and that? And it was the question was great, but it was a really hateful way to present it, I think. And it was really sad to see, because one of the things that really drew me and I loved was this overarching theme of acceptance within witchcraft. You
And
could
I
be
think
yourself, you could be who you wanted to be, and empower yourself to grow into the person that you felt that you were supposed to be. And it's so sad to see so much fighting, I think, because it deters other people. Really, it deters a lot of the newer
absolutely,
witches.
there's a lot of people. And here's the thing. I mean, honestly, if you want to use the word witch, you can, but a lot of the things um, that people are upset about, like Christian Wiccans, and I mean, if you're talking about a traditional Wiccan Gardnerian witch,
Mhm.
they're not Christians, and you can't
Right.
be that and that. There's some
Right.
things you can't be that and that. But if you want to call yourself a witch and you do folk magic, I mean, there's lots of different folk magic paths that the people are Christian, but they
Mhm.
might not use the word witch.
Right.
Like they might not call themselves witches because that's against their religion. But if somebody wants to, who cares? Like
Exactly.
literally, is it going to change your life in some way? It's not.
Right. Right.
It's not going to make your life any worse because somebody wants to say they're a Christian witch.
Right, exactly. And sometimes it's a learning experience, I think. And that's something I touched on in one of the posts I made, was shadow work. And I think that a lot of I just think there's a lot of shadow work that needs to be done within the group. Like, a lot of people got to and I mean, I'm one of them too sometimes, but a lot of people got to take a long, hard look at what is setting them off about certain things, not everything, but certain things, and really, really sit with themselves and ask why, I think.
There's no reason that you can not have a discussion with somebody who has a different opinion than
Yeah.
you or believes differently than you, and not like verbally assault them in such a way that they're going to be traumatized for life. I mean,
Exactly.
I
Yep.
had somebody accuse me of, oh, now you're a Christian witch because I wasn't like taking the post down. I'm like, you don't even know me, and now I'm not a Christian. But I don't hate people because they are. Like
Exactly.
that makes you as bad as the Christians that hate you for being a witch, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It's hypocrisy. Let's be better than that. This is
Yeah.
what we're steering away from. We're clearing away from that hypocrisy of those traditional religious paths.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and if you're allowed to be self-empowered, so is the next guy over there and the girl over
Exactly.
there. Do what's right for you. Be helpful. And if you really can't hold your tongue, don't say anything.
Right.
To be silent. Yes. Well,
Yes.
practice the silence, my
That
friends.
is exactly,
Do it a
yes.
lot. I do it a lot.
Yes.
Or I try to do it a lot. It's hard because I'm a
I
talker.
know, it's so hard sometimes. It's funny because I actually, I just did a live stream last weekend on my Twitch page. And I actually sat down and talked about, how do you, because that's one of the questions we get a lot in the group is how do I know I'm a witch, or how do I become a witch, or how does somebody become a witch? And I don't want to say I have a controversial opinion about it, but I'm like, look, if you are drawn to it, if you study it, if you feel empowered by it, because I do fully believe that witchcraft is a spiritual path. I know a lot of people are trying to separate the two. But I fully believe that witchcraft is an extremely personal and extremely spiritual path. And it is meant to not only grow us as people or have us experience that growth as a person, but also as a spirit. And so I was telling them, I'm like, if you feel that that's where you're going to get your spiritual enlightenment from, that's where you're going to grow as a person, you're drawn to it. Not just, obviously the flashy stuff you see on TV, but you're drawn to it as a way to improve yourself, then by all means call yourself a witch. Like that, I think that's really all it takes to at least get started.
Bottom line is, if you practice witchcraft, I think you can call yourself a witch.
Yes.
I mean, if you practice some form of witchcraft or magic, you practice magic, and you want to call yourself a witch, call yourself a witch. Right. I don't care what anybody, you want to call yourself whatever you are. Are you the same as somebody else's definition? Probably not. We are creators of our reality, my friends.
Yes.
And that's it. But you can't say you're a Gardnerian if you're not, or an Alexandrian if you're not.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Or a voodoo priestess if you've not been initiated into that tradition.
Right.
Those are different. But the word witch is pretty flexible, I think.
Yes.
For me, I just, and honestly, if I'm being honest, it took me a while to get to this place where I was okay with this, because it was different when I was younger. Like it was just different, a specific way of living your life, and the certain practices were what made you a witch.
Yes.
Right. It wasn't as open and flexible, but I am an open and flexible kind of witch.
Right.
I have moved on with the times, and I am accepting of everybody. And I'm, the evolution of the soul, right? So we all have to, so people who are fighting on Facebook over silly stuff like this, evolve a little, get over it. Get over it.
Exactly.
And not everybody believes in the rule of three or the law of return. You have to get over it. Some people don't have that philosophy, although it's based a little bit on science, but we're not going to get into that. Especially law of return. For every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. This is science. If we are manipulating and moving energy, which we are when we're doing witchcraft, obviously it would stand to reason that an opposite and equal reaction. So is it 3 times? I don't know. But opposite and equal? I can believe that. Yes. I can believe that.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway. My 2 cents worth there for what it's worth. So we get a lot of questions about how to get started.
Yes.
So how to get started on your journey. The first thing you got to do is educate yourself.
Yes.
I think learn everything you possibly can about witchcraft. All the different types of witchcraft that there are, because you need to, if you're going to make a decision about where you are investing your time, do you want to be a solitary? Do you want to be part of a coven? Do you want to be part of an initiatory group? Or do you want to do something that is more loose and free, eclectic, if you will, right? So where are you being drawn to? What is it that's really pulling?
Yes, so definitely the eclectic path. I pull bits and pieces from everywhere that I can. Honestly, so I pull a little bit from Wiccanism. I pull a little bit from folk magic, from green witchcraft, from kitchen witchery. I pull a little bit from everything and kind of make it my own. So I have the craziest mix, I think, of spells in my book of shadows. I've got a couple of simmer pot spells. I've got little cleansing sprays for the aura and for the room. I've got just little things like that. I've got a little money, but I just leave it, in on my counter as you're coming in the door. And I think that is very important, though. I want to touch on that for a second. The educating yourself. Never really thought of it this way, but when I was first telling my parents, I came out to my parents as a witch, when I was 14, freshman in high school. And because we were really open about things like that, about religion, like if we had any questions, we could ask my parents, and they were really great about it.
Well, that's you're lucky.
Oh
Now
yeah,
everybody-
it was great. Until I told them that I was a witch. They did not react the way I was expecting them to react. It wasn't anything like super bad, but they were like, you can't do that you can't call yourself a witch until you're at least 18 and you've done your research. Even though I'd already done what I thought was a sufficient amount of research, I said, okay,
Right.
fine. So I did 4 more years of research. And honestly, even then, the resources were so limited. I think like it was
Right.
great, but it was so limited. And now it's almost, I don't want to say too much, but it's a little overwhelming, I think, for people that are first starting out, because you have so many differing opinions and there is that misinformation. But definitely educating yourself about the different types of witchcraft and, the law of return, the rule of 3, not just witchcraft, but the spiritual principles around it, Wiccanism, the different pantheons, because that all ties into it. So like I said, I was Wiccan for a while, I was Hellenistic for a while, and then I settled on Celtic paganism. And I found out that there are they call them the Celtic Commandments, and I have them in my Book of Shadows somewhere, but it's basically like 12, I think it's 12 or 13 rules, and it's in this nice little rhyme for how you're supposed to live your life. And it's funny because it matches a lot with the 13 principles of witchcraft that you have touched on in a couple of your classes from Scott Cunningham.
Yeah.
And I did actually touch on that in my live stream as well, because I do agree with those 13 principles. I think they're very important, especially knowing yourself, knowing your craft, educating yourself, learning, because that's the only way you're going to grow. And that's the only way you're going to adapt when the time comes. Magic is not stagnant. Energy is not stagnant. It is in a
No.
constant state of motion. And you have to be able to keep up with that, I think.
Yeah. So when you're getting started, it can be really overwhelming and you have a lot of different opinions. I'm going to say this: if you have a local group, a training group, or a group that is a teaching coven or a teaching group, a good way to do things, if you're comfortable, is going to seek that out.
Yes.
Or seek out something along those lines if you're really serious about it. Definitely read books, but there's a lot of books. I mean, there's, a million books out there. Read books, figure it out, and realize that whatever you're reading, that you don't know everything after reading one book. It's
exactly.
You do not know everything about when you've read one book. You have to read a lot, and you need to research, and you will notice that things will unravel and appear to you at the right time. Information will come to you, new books, new information, new people that you learn new things from.
Yes.
And that will help you really decipher where you want to go. There's no rush, right?
Exactly. You're here, your whole life. You're here your whole life. There is definitely not a rush. And that's something that I've had to learn, is to kind of take the time to slow down and teach myself, and not just teach myself, not just read, but also put what I'm reading into practice and what I'm learning from other people into practice. Because I mean, it is a practice. Witchcraft is a constantly evolving and constantly growing practice. You have to do it if you want to be, proficient.
Yeah. Knowledge is one thing, right?
Yes.
So you can learn anything, right? You can learn anything, but until you actually do it, can you call yourself a witch?
Exactly.
Until you actually do it, you may know everything. You may have read every book. Is that how you're living your life? Are you walking the walk?
Right.
Are you living your life that way? So that's an important thing to remember.
Yes.
And spells are great, but there's something behind the energy that makes a spell happen. It's not just I lit a candle and made a wish like a birthday cake.
Right.
There's something more behind it. And tapping into that energy is something different. So educate yourself. That's how you get started. Find people, ask questions. Definitely, if you're going to be asking a lot of questions, maybe asking questions in a private group on Facebook. If it's like, rather than a public group, like I love our group, like, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Witches are great, but you got a lot of people that some of them have no idea what they're talking about. There's
Yes.
trolls, there's people, I'm thinking about doing subgroups so we can have like maybe, new witch, and then everybody's so mad about the baby witch. Jesus. Like,
Oh no.
you not have anything else to be upset about.
Right.
Like literally, who cares if they want to call themselves baby witches?
Exactly.
I don't care at all.
Mhm.
I would never do that.
It
But
cracks me up. It cracks me up. I call my daughter a witchling and she loves it, but she's
yeah.
called herself a baby witch every once in a while. And I'm like, it's the cutest thing. She just came up to me about a week or two ago and she's like, Mama, because my husband and I were really open with discussing belief systems and spirituality and things like that. If she has questions, we don't want to be the kind to, enforce our beliefs on her.
Right.
So we walk this fine line where my husband doesn't really have any spiritual beliefs or any religious beliefs, and then I'm over here with the witchcraft and the paganism, and so we're two conflicting there a little bit, but she is so interested in what I'm doing. And the nice thing is that my husband goes, if she asks you, that's fine. If she asks to join you, that's fine. As long as you're not pushing it on her. So she's been asking, can we do a full moon ritual? Can we do this? She just asked me to build, to start her own altar. It's the cutest thing. So I'm really excited to be able to share that part of myself with her. But it's the same thing. Like, she calls herself a baby witch every once in a while. She calls herself a witchling. She's like, she loves it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
That's adorable. Yeah, I think honestly, if it's part of your life, your kids are going to get exposed to it. That's just the way it is. So, but you don't force anything on them.
Exactly.
That's the right way to do it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, however old you are, whether you want to call yourself a baby witch or not, if you're new and you want to get started, find a local group.
Yes.
Read a book, educate yourself, watch videos, but just make sure that wherever you're getting your information, that it is credible in some way or another, and
that's the hard thing to do too, because again, there's so much information, there's so much misinformation, there's so many people that are in it just for, I don't want to say quick buck, but they're in it for the attention. They're in it for they're not in it for what I would say are I don't want to say the right reasons, but they're not in it for, the reasons that other people are. And they're willing to take advantage of the newer members of the group or of a group and of not just the iWitches group. And it's hard to figure out who's in it with your best interests at heart and who's not. As far as finding a group, it took me, I just want to say it took me a long time to find a group that I, vibed with really well. The Sin City Witches are amazing. I love your groups. They have the best feeling I've ever, I've tried there's a couple of local Druid groves out here that I've tried to, mesh with, and I just couldn't mesh with them. There was one.
And they're wonderful.
They are wonderful. Yes. It's not
a personal thing.
It's my personality. It's my personality kind of, didn't fit in well with what they were doing. And that's absolutely fine. They're wonderful people. There was another group out here for a while that I went to a couple of times, and the shop closed down. It was on Sahara in Decatur. I can't remember what it was called. But I mean, even then, they were great and they were such a sweet group, but I just didn't fit in. So I'm so lucky. Like I said, I've been practicing for 17 years and I've finally found a group where I'm like, I mesh well with the people in the group, and, it's amazing. So you don't have to find a group right away. You don't even have to find a mentor right away. If you can, great, do so. But again, be careful, because not everybody's going to have your best interests at heart. What I did is, I think I can't remember if I found you guys on Facebook first or meetup.com.
Yeah.
Meetup.com is a great resource. Because I know we used to have, what was it? Witchbox?
Yeah, that's close.
Yeah.
That was a lot. You know what? Sin City Witches was listed on there, and we got a lot of people from there. So we did. We used to get, because if you had your listing on there, but you probably found us on Meetup, I bet, Well,
Yeah, I think it was Meetup at first.
yeah, Meetup.
Yeah.
Now I think Facebook is better. Like I used to be able to gauge how many people were coming to a local live event more from Meetup because there
Right.
were more people who were going to say. But now I guess it's Facebook has taken over the whole.
It really has, which is really nice. I mean, everything in one place, as much as you can. That's what I liked with Witchbox, is because there were so many things in just one place. You had the resources, you had the meetup groups. I'm seeing the chats here. I swear I'm not ignoring the chats. Hi guys, I'm super excited to be here. So I'm in Henderson, Nevada, Canada. That's a long way. It boggles my mind. Like I love the reach that the internet has. I think honestly, because you can connect with people from pretty much all over. I mean, I was talking with somebody at my day job and they had connected and made really good friends with somebody, and they were in Phoenix, Arizona, and the other person was in South Africa. I mean, the reach nowadays is amazing.
It is. Oh, it looks like somebody's talking Latin to us in the YouTube chat.
That's
curse. I don't know. It looks like Latin to me. I don't know what the heck they're saying, but
me neither.
We're here in Vegas, though, Amanda and I. That's yes. So we're going to be doing this new part of Touch of Magic where we have modern witches who are practicing and doing their thing. Come on and just chit chat about witchcraft with me.
Yes.
So if you are watching and you are one of those people that want to do that, just hit me up on iWitches at iWitches on Facebook or iwitchesweb@gmail.com if you want. And you can come hang out and tell me your story and chat with me about witchcraft too.
It's fantastic. It's a really freeing experience, honestly, because when I first started, again, I was 14 and all of the books in the early 2000s, I'm sure the late 90s too, were don't say anything, don't tell anybody, keep it super secret, to that tenet to be silent and just don't say anything. So it was really odd for me when I first started being able to discuss it with people, because I'm like, what are they going to say? What are they going to do? What's going to happen? And it's interesting now because, like I said, it's a really freeing experience because it's almost lonely when especially if you're starting out, like I was back in the early 2000s, where you don't know. I don't want to say it's validating, but it's really nice to have that community. I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, it's a bit, and it depends on what you're looking for, because I see a lot of people. All right, we'll go back to the group thing, right? On the group, how do I find a coven? How do I join a coven? How do I start a coven? And honestly, a coven is a very specific thing.
Yes.
You are connecting yourself spiritually and your lives with people. Yes. And it is a very serious commitment that you're making if you're joining a coven. I run a circle, Indigo Moon Circle, which is outside of Sin City Witches, because even though I love all of the thousands of people who are part of that group, I obviously can't, have all those people at my house. No, and it probably wouldn't work out. It was too many people. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I have a circle, which is a little looser. We're not, they're able to be in other groups and do whatever they want, where they can come and go as they please. There's no obligation. And it's very, it's a looser thing. It's beautiful and fun, but it's a looser thing. A coven, it's a very serious commitment that you make when you join a coven or when you become part of a coven, or say you're starting a coven. I mean, it's a serious one. Not like, we're going to have a coven and haha.
Exactly. And I know people are looking for that community. And like I said, it's really great to find it. And that's the thing, is that not a lot of people know that about covens, is that you're basically tying your life and your spirituality to other people. So you got to be really careful about how you do that with, and
who you do that with.
Exactly.
They're like, I want to just join a coven. And I'm like, oh, you want to, bind your energy with people that you just met yesterday? Because a lot of people are calling this a coven. They're doing things. They're messing with their energies and stuff. And you got to just take it seriously. It's serious. You wouldn't just go and join a religion somewhere without knowing,
Right.
what you're doing. I mean,
Exactly. And that's, and that's a good point to make too. That I mean, even as a Christian, you're not just going to go and join the next church, down the block. You're going to make sure that they mesh well with your beliefs and your ideals, and that they have, because everybody's going to interpret it differently, but similar interpretation, so that way you're not butting heads with anybody. I don't want to say it's concerning to see all these people that just want to rush into the coven thing, but I honestly think part of that has to do with TV, movies, the books. And I'm like, I get it. It's exciting to have those people around you, but you want to be really careful about who you join into a commitment with that with.
And there are plenty of open public circles. And plus the fact that you've got to be careful about who the people are that are saying they have a coven too.
Yeah.
There are predators. There are predators. Anybody who's trying to get you to do things that you would not normally do.
Exactly.
Anybody who is trying to use sex in any way to make that part of your experience, to have to be part of their group.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what you're looking for, and make sure it's around a while. Make sure it's been around a while. I mean, the thing about my group, Sin City Witches, we do public stuff. We have lots of like social gatherings. We do a lot of things where we're getting to know each other.
Yes.
Having a good time. You're able to have solitaries come together. You can be a solitary, you can be in a coven, you can just come hang out. And then at least you're getting to know the people in your community. And if you decide to branch off and do something, you've done your homework by hanging out with people in a public space.
Exactly.
Don't go to some stranger's house.
Exactly.
Just for safety reasons. I don't know why I feel like I have to say that, but I feel like a lot of people are like, easy to go just trust somebody.
Exactly. There's a lot of naivete around practicing witchcraft and being a witch and being part of coven, and even just on the internet itself. And I see this a lot in the iWitches Facebook group, where you've one of those scammers will slip by every once in a while before we're able to catch it, and it's like, post reply to this, the next 20 people, whatever, and then I'll inbox you a reading. And then these people are surprised when they're taken advantage of, and I'm like, guys, you can't trust everybody you see, especially on the internet, but you shouldn't be trusting strangers with your information, your money, and that's a part of the internet that's been really, I don't want to say scary, but it's very concerning, because there's a lot of people that are just so naive and so ready to have that experience and to have that knowledge.
Right. So it's good to want that connection with other people who are on the same path as you. Just
exactly.
And my group is free, by the way. Sin City Witches is free. The events we do are free, unless it's like costs something at the venue that we're going to.
Yeah, like the Artifice or whatever. The Artifice.
That included a hotel room. There was
that was amazing.
Yeah. So there was a seance, there were psychics. That's a different type of event. But like our public events, I'm not charging somebody to be part of my club. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how that works. And and I would be a little suspicious of people who are trying to get you to, give them $50 every time you have it. And none of my circles cost money.
No.
None of my circles cost money.
No.
When we get together, you don't pay me to come to my house and have a ritual.
Right.
That's ridiculous. I mean, to me, that's crazy. And I know there's some groups that do that. Unless you're doing some kind of like crafting or something.
Right.
And then it should be reasonable.
Yes.
You don't need to spend $50 to knit something together or some paper mache to something. Nobody should be charging you that.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I like to tell people that are new, because you get, there's a, and I was just watching a video about this, so we'll touch on this, I think too, but I was just watching a video about this, because I do watch a couple of like pagan YouTube channels.
Yeah.
And there was one where he was talking about, corporate paganism, basically, and corporate witchcraft, where it's, people that are really just looking to make a quick buck off of the pagan and witchcraft communities. So they, want you to write these fluff pieces, or they'll offer you something. And, it's just,
Well, here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with having a business.
No,
Like,
that's
if you
correct.
have a business that caters to the community, that is fine. You're
Right.
offering a service and you are to be paid for it. That is fine. What I'm talking about is like for a spiritual community kind of thing.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like when we have our get-togethers, it's a potluck. People bring
Yes.
stuff, you know, like to eat. They share it with everybody. We have wine, whatever. That kind, you know, that's very typical kind of thing to do. But there's no door admission. This is
no, exactly.
together.
And what I was trying to say is that I think what I was leading into with that anyways is that I think that I'm one of those people that thinks that witchcraft should be as accessible as possible to those that want to practice.
Yes.
So I'm always telling people, like, I get most of my, like my spray bottles, my glass bottles with little droppers in them and stuff, I get them from the dollar store. There's so many things you can find that you can use for witchcraft at the dollar store. It's insane. And, you know, just little things like that. Cause I remember we did the scrying mirror.
Yeah.
And I got everything I needed for it at the dollar store. And then, you know, it was like $3-4 for a scrying mirror. And it was amazing.
There you go. There you go. So you can absolutely do things on a budget if you need to, and you don't have to spend $1 million. You're going to want some nice pieces though.
Well,
You're gonna want some higher end stuff that you can't, you know, that you can't make yourself. Like, I'm not super, honestly, I have an admission, everybody. I am the most uncrafty witch that existed ever. I am not so crafty, okay, as far as making stuff. Sometimes it looks like a kindergarten kid did it. But so, like, you know, I buy a lot of my stuff. I mean, you know, I'm just not. I'm talented at some things, and that's just not one of them. And I don't have patience for it sometimes, to be honest. You know, so anyway, so yeah, so you can get a lot of cool stuff, and there's nothing wrong with having a business and being paid for services. There are services, there are websites, there are apps, and if somebody's teaching you something and they, you know, you're paying for a class, a reasonable price for a class. Education is not always free. You don't go to college.
Exactly.
You know?
And it shouldn't be. There are some things
it's a fair trade of energy.
Exactly.
But if somebody's charging you $5,000, they suck. And you know what? Not for nothing. And that's bad karma right there, you know?
Yes. And that's the one thing, because I know that there was a lot of people that are really hesitant about the iwitches.com. Because, you know, it's that, I think it's like what, $9.99, like $9.99.
Yeah, it's $9.99.
But it's upkeep of the website. You do so many classes and so many live videos. I mean, there's so much you're getting for that.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's a lot of information and stuff.
Exactly.
And you have access to me anytime. You know, contact me and I will get back to you if you need my help with something.
Yes.
You know, and I offer the classes, and, you know, and I didn't want to make it so that they were, you know, their base price for the people, you know, the platform I use, they're like $49. I'm like, I don't need to charge $49.99 to people. I'm like, I'll charge $9.99. I do this, you know, and that's because it takes me time to put things together and do things. And
exactly. And that's something that should be, like you said, fair and equal trade. That I have no problem with that. That's definitely fine. But there are obviously red flags.
People who are not spiritual even at all, and they are capitalizing on witch.
And that's and that's kind of where I was going with that. So I don't
witch for sale. Right.
Exactly.
So there's, you know, you can run a legitimate business as a witch. And
that's a really taboo topic too, which is crazy to me. Like, there's so many people that are like, well, you shouldn't be charging for your gifts. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't
be charging for my readings. I've seen that. I'm like, really? That's my job. What do you think that that's what I do? I help, and I have clients that I've had for 10 years, you know, 12 years. People, when I moved from New York, still call me on the phone to this day. Do you know why? Because
you're amazing.
Because I help them.
Yes.
I do what I call path working. So we're utilizing the tarot not just to see the future. I'm helping you work through spiritual issues that I am using my channeling abilities and, you know, my guides and my cards to help you see what needs to be seen to move forward on your path. And I'm a certified life coach. So you add that together, and I can help you utilizing spirituality and a little common sense I'm helping you move forward in your life.
Yes.
And I honestly, I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no.
You know,
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You're providing value to people.
Energy work.
Yeah.
And honestly, and people, when they're saying you shouldn't charge for your gifts, this is not about charging for gifts. This is about being of service and being fairly compensated for that.
Exactly.
Like, you know, I don't want $1 million. I'm asked for a fair, let's make a trade. And if people can't afford to pay me, I absolutely will do a sliding scale and be like, well, what can you give me? What can we do? Can we trade something else? I'm not trying to hurt anybody, and I want to still help you, but we've got to exchange. We've got to exchange the energy here, because I'm giving of myself. And if somebody really can't give me anything, I do it for nothing. You know, if they really can't, and it's really, you know, but I can't do that for everybody. You have people asking for free readings all the time, or free services, or free. How many hours in a day do I have?
Right.
And people on the group that act like it's ridiculous. They think, I don't know if they think that we get paid from Facebook to be moderators and admins, or whatever they're thinking. I'm not really sure. They act like, how dare we not like catch. Do you know that we get 3 million views a month on our posts? And if you look at our things with 350,000 people, there's 3 million views. That means there's like what? 150,000 comments. How many posts that there are? Like, how are we supposed to? We're human beings, and I do have a family and a life and things that I do outside of Facebook.
Right. I'm saying I have a full-time job. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I got stuff to do.
There's stuff going on, right? Like, I mean, give me a break. So anyway, all right, we're off on a tangent.
I know. It's really easy to get me off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
Me too. That's not good with the both of us then, right? So the other thing that there's a big, a big debate on that I noticed is religious versus non-religious witchcraft. Is witchcraft a religion? Witchcraft is not a religion. It is for some people. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. For some people, there is a spiritual edge. They are connected to deity. They are connected to energies, and that is where they're utilizing their powers through and connecting to. Right. So honestly, you can't tell people that. It's okay that they consider it a religion. You don't have to do that if you don't want to.
Right. Well, and it's almost like religion is this like dirty word in witchcraft, and especially within the witchcraft sphere. And I'm like, absolutely, it's a religious experience for me. It's a spiritual path for me. I have grown so much as a person, in part because I am a witch and because I practice witchcraft, I think, and because I work with the deities that I work with. And I don't think that I would have found the same growth on any other path. And it's absolutely fine if it's a religious path for you. And I see that a lot too, where it's a practice. It's basically a science. It's not. And I'm like, okay, but you're utilizing something outside of yourself that is, I mean, it is natural. I fully believe magic is natural.
Absolutely. You're tapping into the energy of the universe. And I feel like you are creatures of mind, body, and spirit. And if you believe in balance and polarity and balance and things being, equal, in that, you've got to realize that you have to be feeding that spiritual side of things with this energy you're using. It's just the way it is. And
I like to I like to touch on that too. And I like to touch on the fact that, if you are working with a deity, make sure to, give offerings every once in a while. It doesn't always have to be food. It doesn't always have to be something physical. You can write a poem, you could do a drawing, but do something that is meaningful to the energies that you're working with, to give thanks to them, because they are helping you. There's a give and there's a take.
Absolutely. And I think this is the thing, though. A lot of newer witches, when they come in, they're like, I want to work with this god or goddess. They decide they're going to do it, but they're not getting to know that energy.
Yes.
It's like me, like walking up to my neighbor and knocking on the door and be like, just walk in their house, sit down.
Exactly.
For dinner,
Yes.
Or, asking them for, you got $500. I don't know you. Like
Right.
just like randomly asking. You need to develop a relationship with
Yes.
any of the deities that you're working with any of
Yes.
the energies, with any of the elemental energies. You have to be familiar with them, be
Yes.
connected to them. So work on those daily practices. That was something I
Yes.
wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Calling yourself a witch and doing a spell is one thing, but how are you living your life as a witch? Which is, what are you doing every day? There's simple ways that you can add witchcraft to your life every day,
Yes.
magic to your life every day. Find a
Exactly.
daily practice that connects you. So what are some ways, Amanda, that you would suggest somebody could do that?
So, I mean, honestly, the easiest thing for me to do is prayer. I pray to my deities, and it's not for everybody, obviously, but I do pray to my deities in the morning. You can set up an altar for the energies and just invite them into your space. So I have, like an ancestor altar out in my living room. I have an altar in my kitchen specifically for Breed. You know, the hearth goddess for Celtic paganism, and I leave her offerings of milk and bread. But I take my time and I get to know my deities. I get to know, the energies that I'm working with. The another thing that I do, I mean, I posted a little blurb about this on the Facebook page too. It could be something as simple as stirring your intentions into your tea or your food in the morning, giving thanks, and just really not rushing. I tell people part of witchcraft is learning when to slow down, I think. And that's a really big part of living the craft and walking this path is slowing down and attuning yourself, not just to your immediate surroundings and not just to yourself, but to the world and the energies around you. That's an extremely important part. So meditation, even if it's for 5 minutes a day to start with. I'm horrible at meditation. I have ADHD. I sit down for 5 to 10 minutes a day and I just I stop and I breathe and I connect to the energies around me, the energies in my home. I'm an animist, so I think that kind of goes hand in hand with Celtic paganism a little bit. So I think that there is a spirit in my home. There's spirits of the land. There's spirits pretty much everywhere, and I make sure that's a big part of my craft is I just make sure that I am honoring and respecting them. So like I said, you can build an altar. It doesn't have to be anything fancy either. I have like a nightstand over in my bedroom. It's actually right here. And I've got, like my cleansing sprays and my oils. That's another thing that you can do too, is you can dedicate certain things, like I said, meals, certain things that you do to energies that you work with, or just to your craft,
Absolutely. So
and
even if
make it
you're not
magic.
really, even if you don't work with deities, connect to the elemental
Yeah.
energies around you.
Yes.
Connect to yourself. Make sure your chakras are aligned and
Yeah.
you have balance in your life.
Yes.
Make sure that you are finding joy and wonder in the things that you are touching every day.
Yes.
Make sure to feel the energy. Make sure to feel the energy from the people that you're around. Make sure that you become in complete awareness of the energy that you're giving off.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Keep
And
yourself.
that's another big part of it too. So back to the 13 principles of witchcraft, where it's keep your thoughts and your words in good order. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be positive all the time, but know and understand that your words and your thoughts have an effect not only on yourself, but on the energies and the people around you. And why would you waste your energy on something negative when you can turn it into something positive? Not, like I said, you have every right to obviously feel what you're feeling and have those negative feelings. That's also a really big part of witchcraft, I think, is knowing when.
Yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, is knowing when those negative emotions are valid and knowing when to feel them and to acknowledge them. But definitely know what it is that you're expending your energy on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because you're gonna whatever you're focusing on, you're gonna bring that energy to yourself.
Yes. Like
Like
attracts like.
like attracts like.
Mhm.
So keeping yourself in that balanced state of mind every day. Learn something new every day. Know
Yes.
what phase of the moon. Look at the moon. Look at the stars. Find the beauty in the sky.
Yeah.
There's a cycle and a season and a reason for everything. And
Mhm.
once you're in tune with that, once you're like vibing with that energy, that is the magic. Is
Yes.
the connection to self and everything else around you. And you're part of that. You're part of that fabric of reality, that fabric of the universe, and realizing you're part in that, and realizing you're not a victim of life, that you are the
Right.
creator of the life you want, that you
Right.
don't have to be in that space of negativity, that you don't, it's not toxic positivity.
No.
It's taking control of that and realizing that if you want something to change, you have to change from within yourself, bring
Yes.
it up and send it out. That's what has
Exactly.
to happen. And that's how the change happens. That's how you live the magic, is that you walk
Yes.
in that power of knowing that no matter how bad anything is that happens to you, you have the ability to shift that energy and fix it.
Mhm.
You
And
have
that's
that
something
ability.
that is something I talked about in my live stream as well. I was talking about how, I mean, again, not everybody, but a lot of people think that I'm one of those people. I think we're a divine manifestation. We are a manifestation of divinity. So we have that spark inside of us, that spark of creation, that spark of power. We draw from other things to empower it, but we have a spark of it. Every one of us does. And, to use that to build the life you want, but to also help other people there's so many things that go into witchcraft. It's not just about building your life up and building, it's about how can you help somebody else build theirs up too? I
Absolutely, because we're all connected to each other.
Yeah,
And when you see that truth, when you see the truth of the connection, I mean, and here's the thing, you're connected to people. And if they're crappy people, you're also allowed to disconnect from them as well. You
exactly.
know, but
Exactly.
we are responsible for the way our life is.
Yes.
And knowing that is good, because that
Yes,
means that if you're responsible for it, you could make it whatever you want it to be. So
exactly.
empower yourself, feel that
Yeah.
energy, grab it. You're part of the divine spark of divinity. There you go.
Yeah.
I love that. I
And then
like that.
after you empower yourself, help empower others, because there are other people that need it just as much as you do.
Absolutely. And if
Yes.
you don't want to empower others, you don't have to. I
Well,
mean,
no, exactly. That's exactly
you don't have to.
but
I
but
always
yeah,
have that,
that's
like,
that's
this
how I
is
live.
all about
How I
you.
live my craft.
That's how
Exactly. That's
me
how
too.
I live my
I
craft.
live that way too, but
Out
not
there.
everybody, not
Exactly.
everybody does.
That's true. That's exactly it. Yes.
All right. So anyway, I think we're about ready to wrap this up today. This was a lot
Okay.
of fun.
Yes.
I think we're going to do this again because this was great, Amanda. I had a great
Oh yeah.
time. Let's do a book show. Let's me and you
Yes.
talk about
Absolutely.
witchcraft books. You want to do that?
Yes,
We'll do
I
a
do.
book show.
Let's
All
do
right,
that.
we'll do that next month. We'll do a
Okay.
whole show about witchcraft books, and we'll say the ones we love, the ones we hate.
Yes.
Should we say the ones we hate? I don't know. Well, why? I guess why not? Why not? Right?
There's merit. There's merit in talking about not only things that you agree with, but things that you don't, and
Absolutely.
why you don't agree with them, because somebody else might. Somebody else might vibe with what you don't vibe with. So it's always good to touch on it, I
All
think.
right. So Amanda's going to be back, and we're going to talk about some books next month.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm gonna sign off. So thanks so much for being here with us today. Touch of Magic is the name of the show, and I
Mhm.
hope you enjoyed it. On the next episode, we have Sir Terrence Williams, and he is amazing. And he's going to talk to us about Thelema, Crowley, the OTO, and all of that high magical fun stuff. If you're interested in sharing your witchcraft path and want to be on this show with me and want to, have some banter and some fun, you can pick a topic and we can talk and chat. So, let me know. You can reach me at iWitches on Facebook or iwitchesweb@gmail.com. Sorry, guys. I'm like, I can't speak for
You're
some.
okay. I do the
Okay.
same thing. I have so many socials. I'm like, you can reach me.
I'm like, where can you reach me? I don't know. In outer space right now, I guess. Anyway, until we see each other again, remember to be the magic, because you are the magic, and that's a fact. And I will see you soon.
Thank
Hopefully.
you guys. Thank
Bye.
you so much, Marissa.